Hello, a very warm welcome to Developing for DotPad. This is Dot's June 2026 webinar. I'm your host, Dave Williams. Thank you so much for joining us live on the third Monday in June or watching us on YouTube. We appreciate your company. And over the next little while, we are going to be exploring some of the different ways in which you can develop your own project for DotPad. You'll be meeting with one of our distributors and also our product support manager, who is also a developer by trade. So we'll be introducing everybody here in just a moment. A reminder, this is a webinar, and so to ask questions you need to pop those in the Q&A section of the webinar. So we're not going to be unmuting everybody in this session as it's being recorded, but if you do have a question or a comment, we'd very much love to hear from you. So please just pop that in the question and answer section and we'll try and get to as many of those as possible. Don't forget, of course, Dot is going to be out and about in the summer of 2026. We will be at the National Federation of the Blind and the American Council of the Blind annual conventions in the United States in July. Also in July, we'll be at the Accessing Higher Ground conference, and you will find our distributor VisionAid along with a couple of representatives from Dot at Site Village in Birmingham in the UK. So we really look forward to meeting you in person and hopefully you getting the opportunity to get hands-on with DotPad in person. Now, if it's tricky to get to one of those events, I will, before we kick off today, just give a very brief overview of DotPad. But before I do that, let's just introduce the team here on the webinar this afternoon. So I'm just going to start with our guests. JJ Meadow is how would you describe yourself, Jay? Who are you? What do you do?
I don't know. I do lots of random things. I am the owner of AT Guys, and we are a DotPad distributor. And I am also been developing for DotPad. So happy to be here, and I might see you guys in Austin or St. Louis as well.
Excellent. Oh, we look forward to spending time with you there. We are also joined by Dot's technical support manager, who has many years of experience developing for DotPad. Gary Redfern Gray. Gary.
Yes, I'm Gary Redfern Gray, Technical Support Manager here at Dot, and I've been involved in software developer for quite a long time now, so very excited to talk about what we're doing in this webinar to do with developing for DotPad.
Right, and you've been making some tools in Windows, and we'll come to those in just a moment. Now, did I hear David Sexton?
Yes, I'm here.
Hello, David. Welcome in. Welcome in. We didn't get a chance to do a kind of a tech test with you earlier, but you're sounding fabulous. So just let
Perfect.
everyone know who you are and what you do just in sort of 5 seconds.
Sure. I'm David Sexton. I'm out of California, and I do a lot of experiments to figure out how far blind people can go in doing interesting things like 3D printing or programming things on the DotPad as far as possible before asking help from AI or sighted assistants. So my big thing is doing experimental things apart from my regular day job.
Excellent. Right. And then before we get the session underway, finally, it's my great pleasure to introduce our marketing manager, Louise Humphreys.
Hi everyone, thanks for attending. We're very excited about today's session. It's actually had the highest number of registrations so far of any of the webinars we've done, so you're all very welcome. Thank you for coming. We're also keen to build our schedule for the second half of this year. So if you've got any ideas about future webinars that you'd like to hear about, then please do let us know. We'll share the details at the end of the chat.
Excellent. Okay, so answers on a postcard. If you have a topic that's dot related that you'd like us to cover, we would love to hear from you. So the way today's session is going to work, I'm going to give each of our panelists, JJ, David, and Gary, around 10 minutes. This is not like a leadership contest, right? So we're not going to be ringing the bell or anything too serious like that. But we just would like to give each of these guys about 10 minutes to talk about how they approached developing for DotPad. Now, if this is your first time joining us, and if you've not had the opportunity to get hands-on with DotPad, DotPad is a tactile information display that features a 300-cell tactile array plus a 20-cell braille reading line. You have 6 navigation keys for panning and scrolling, and then DotPad can be connected to your smartphone, tablet, or laptop via USB or low energy Bluetooth. DotPad uses a new innovative braille cell technology, which means that we can pack braille cells very close together, both vertically and horizontally, which lends itself very well to not only rendering up to 10 lines of 6-dot braille, but also tactile graphics as well. DotPad measures around 11 by 9 inches, weighs just a couple of pounds, so you're not going to need to buy yourself a new backpack for this one. And DotPad is very versatile, connects with your screen reader, so VoiceOver on iOS, JAWS for Windows, NVDA, and we hope in the future TalkBack. But what has also grabbed our attention here at Dot is that many of you, through the power of vibe coding, or maybe you're experienced developers, have decided, actually, I would like to spin up my own project, my own game, my own application. And we really want to lean into that and embrace that and support the developer community to make the most of DotPad. DotPad is a display only. It's not a braille note taker. It's not a tablet. So it really is a blank canvas onto which you can project your own tactile experiences. So I'm going to hand over to JJ to get us underway to talk about some of the tactile experiences that he has created that are available online right now. If you have a DotPad, you can go to his website and you can try out his stuff. So I'm going to hand over to JJ to talk about what he's made, how you can try it, how he made it, what were perhaps some of the bumps in the road, how he overcame those, and what he plans to do next. Jay?
Awesome. Yeah, thank you so much. And I'm really excited that we have this topic and, being able to talk about creating, we've had a lot of tech gadgets that are created for blind people. And so many of them come with software that is created by the company, and that's it. We want to make things as well. Like I remember, one of the few that at least let you do a little bit was way back in the day, the Braille and Speak had the basic interpreter. So you could write little games on the Braille and Speak. And when I was in high school, that was one of my favorite things to do, to kind of be able to code and build on a device. So one of the biggest things that drew me to the DotPad, both in selling it, but also just using it as a customer and a user, was that I could build on it. If I'm going to have this nice piece of technology that's capable of displaying text and graphics, and then more text on the bottom, I want to be able to build with it, and I want to be able to create experiences. It's been my dream ever since multi-line Braille. We started to talk about it maybe 10 years ago. That's been my dream, to be able to have a blank canvas to create, and we have that now with DotPad. I'm going to try to walk a line between technical and non-technical. I do see there's several names on here that I recognize that are either developers or are in that space, and I know there's others that are probably just brand new to everything. So I'm going to talk about some things that we've done developer-wise, and also but try to do it in some simple enough language so I don't lose half of you while I'm doing it. So DotPad and the company, one of the things that I noticed early on is they have online, so on GitHub. So GitHub is a website where people can post their code and apps for free to share with others. It's all called open source. So DotPad has what's called a software developer kit, SDK. And that's all online and free and available for anyone to grab and to use. So whether you wanted to save code something for the iPhone or do what I've done and make web apps that work in Chrome or Edge, using Bluetooth or USB, they have provided the basic building blocks to do this. And, so how do you communicate with the display? So how do you tell the pins to come up or down? Or what do you do, or how do you recognize when someone presses the F1, F2, F3, F4? Or maybe two buttons at the same time, F1 plus the left arrow. So what Dot has provided for us is the basic building blocks to understand, okay, this is how we can, using code, operate and connect with the Dot. That's really important because, trying to create that from scratch, while it might be doable, it's, without the instructions would be really complex. We would have had to try to reverse engineer it. So I am very thankful that Dot has made that available. That's true for anyone who gets a DotPad. So that's out there and you can get that. So what I did is I took that information and the SDK, downloaded it, started looking at it a little bit, and at the same time that was happening, vibe coding really was starting to take off. And it went from a thing that was kind of hobbyist to, wow, you can really make all sorts of stuff with it. So I had AI look at the SDK, and I told it, hey, can you explain this to me? And there was also already documentation with it. I had it kind of break down. So I use both Codex, which is OpenAI's ChatGPT, and Claude. They both seem to do a similar job with this type of thing. And it started to understand a little bit about how it worked. Now, what AI has been notoriously not great at is Braille. It doesn't know a ton of Braille. So, for instance, the DotPad display, the 300 cell array, when we say the 300 cell array, I know that sometimes can be confusing to people. What that actually means is that graphics area of the dot is made up of 308 dot cells. So it actually is 30 cells across and then 10 rows of that. So that's how you get to 60 dots across and 40 dots down. So hold on to that for a second because then we can kind of play with that canvas. So I had to do some things, and also there were some things that were provided by Dot because, okay, if I wanted to print a Braille text line on the graphics display, you don't want to do something in the first cell and then have a blank cell and then have another Braille letter in the next cell. The Braille dots would be too spaced out. So when you're, say, using, the Kindle app, or if you're using JAWS or NVDA with Dot, what it's doing is it's doing a half cell that's blank between each Braille letter. That's how you get the spacing that we have on the display. So you really get about 20 characters across instead of 30. So what I started to do is I took the software developer kit and I had AI, we worked together to write some additional, what you call a class. In other words, a whole bunch of instructions and functions that we could do to do things over and over. So instead of just telling Dot, write me a tic-tac-toe game, the first things I created was, let's write some code that will draw a line, a horizontal line, or a vertical line, or a diagonal line, or letters. And, kind of giving it all of these basic building blocks. So then if I wanted to create apps, all of these basic building blocks already existed. And I have some of this, and I'm happy to share out anything that I've made. I have nothing that's really proprietary at this point. So I taught it various things. Because, remember I said this is a blank canvas, right? So just because we have these 300 cells, it doesn't even mean that the Braille needs to start at the top left corner of cell number 1. I actually have it set up so I could start the Braille. Say I want to start just not a whole line down, but maybe 2 dots down, because I want to be very particular about how things are spaced and lined up. So I'm able to tell it now. I want to start the Braille on line 3 of 40 and maybe column 6, and I want to print this text. And I can code, we can do that now. And then I've also tied in Liblouis, which is a really popular open source Braille translation tool, to connect with all of that as well. So I can now print text horizontally, or I can print text vertically, or upside down even. Any of the 4 possible ways that one could print text. So we have our code that works with that. And of course, there's also that additional 20 cell line of text on the bottom. which you can get to either by saying print a text line, or it's actually called line 0 in the code as well. So that gets you there as well. So what have I built with that? That's allowed me to do all sorts of mishmash of things. So I started with a little calendar. So a lot of us as kids, or you can still get them now, you get these little braille index card sized calendars that just have all the months with the grid of the days and then the holidays on the bottom. So that was one of the first things that I created with the DotPad. And and again, once I had those basic building blocks in place, the actual calendar, I think I've had it encoded in about 10 or 15 minutes. You'd see it and you can feel it. It's when you're designing for a Braille product, it's so cool because it pops up on the display. And then I'll be like, I actually want to move that road down a line. Or I want to, or oops, to put number signs in. I don't want number signs on the calendar. So you just kind of go back and forth and you tell it what you want to do. So then I started thinking about what are cool games that you could make that just work a lot better when you can feel the board. So Connect Four, Tic-Tac-Toe, Battleship, chess and checkers, did Blingo, which is a word game that's been around for a while. Just a whole bunch of cool different things, and really trying to take advantage of the DotPad display. So I really tried to push the limits of what we could do with the display, but I know people have gone even further than what I've done. So I added some commands in the Braille apps that if you press two keys together, there's already context-sensitive help for every single screen that you're on. You can go back to the main menu. Even made a Tetris game, which works really well on the DotPad because the cells on the DotPad, you can they refresh faster and you can keep your hands on them while they're refreshing, kind of. So it makes it a lot easier for a game like Tetris, which is just a lot of fun to play. So, I just want to emphasize, it's really cool. Anyone pretty much can make apps. We sold a DotPad unit, which was received about a week ago to a gentleman, Bekatish, who's on the call here, and he sent me back an email a couple days later. He's like, "All right, I already made an app with Claude. It's a little shape viewer." So that's how quickly you can get ramped up and you can start to build with DotPad. So I know there's a lot more we can say, but there's a couple other developers on as well, and I want to learn from each other, and I really hope by the end of this we can start building a community. If you want to try out the Dot apps and you happen to have a DotPad unit, you can go to braille.atguys.com, and that's where all of the DotPad apps that I've created live. So they are just written in regular JavaScript and TypeScript on the web. I have also successfully done them in Python as well. So lots of really cool ideas and potential that I'm seeing, and I'm so excited to play with things that other people have built as well.
Jay, just want to mention very briefly as well the little workaround on iOS if you want to use Bluetooth from that webpage.
Yeah, so we're using Bluetooth Low Energy. Now, Safari on the iPhone does not allow for that directly. So we found a web browser called Bluefy, Bluefy, that lets you pretty much, it's like Safari, but it supports that Bluetooth Low Energy mode. So if you download that web browser, which is free, then you can what you will need to do is make sure you disconnect DotPad from VoiceOver, and then you can connect via Bluefy. And then if you're on Windows, you want to use Chrome or Edge to connect to the DotPad.
The other thing you did, Jay, that I really like and appreciate is you created a little front end as well for all your apps. Do you want to just talk about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So that's really just taking advantage of, you have the 6 keys that are on the DotPad. So I just made a main menu that kind of reminded me of like a loading screen, that you might have on the note takers. But of course, there you'd only see one line at a time. So it shows a list of the various apps, or actually has the welcome screen on the main screen, welcome to Dot Apps with AT Guys. And then the bottom text row just shows the app that you're currently on. You press the right and left arrow to select one. You can press F2 to open the app. So I try to make it really consistent and just make it as simple of an experience as possible so you can do as much as possible using the DotPad itself.
Brilliant. I'm sure people are going to have questions for you, Jay, so
sure.
Please do stick around. That's
I will.
braille.atguys.com, but wait till the end of the session, because if you're anything like me, you'll just disappear down that rabbit hole and start playing these games. All right, so I'm now going to come to you, David. I know you've been working on something Completely different, actually, and I think this is a really good contrast. So just sort of go start from the beginning, really, and just tell us a little bit about what you've made with DotPad, how you went about it, and how you overcame any challenges along the way, and then what your kind of plans are for the future.
Sure. So I was working with Dot and trying to explain how a blind person might draw on the DotPad. And my ideas were hard to explain, so I decided that I needed to test some of them out. And at the time, I was more comfortable with the back end and with Python. And so what I have made is I call it Dot Experiments. I have all of the code that's available on request, but it consists of a Python backend and then a web-based front end that runs in a Docker container. Why did I use Python for the backend? It's because I wanted the giant array of dots, as JJ was saying, like 2,400 dots, to be represented in NumPy by a Boolean array of basically true false values. And so that's what I did with my backend is kind of, my guess was there are probably algorithms for making different shapes inside of NumPy and inside of these kind of arrays of dots. So the first challenge was translating that the protocol that Dot expected into something that I could imagine in NumPy, where I could do that 60 by 40, 60 by 40 array of dots. And then after I got that working, where true means there's a dot and false means there's not a dot, then it was simple to look back at old algorithms that people used when screens were not as densely packed as they are today. When people wanted to draw lines and make that line look as well as it could with large pixels. So these different like Breesenham algorithms where you put in 2 XY points and you get a line that looks like, sometimes if the 2 endpoints are low, then it looks like a few steps going down rather than a straight line, because that's what we're dealing with here is basically giant pixels. So my app has a bunch of different sections, and I'll just tell you about them kind of one by one. So the line algorithm, where you can put in 2 XY coordinates and then it will draw a line between them. Circle, where you say, I'm going to put XY in a point and a radius. You can either draw a circle or you can draw a filled circle. So the circle could either be just a line around the outside or a filled, like solid circle. Same thing with different polygons, where you say, I want something with 5 sides, or I want something with 8 sides, and it will do the best that it can to draw those different things. Same with rectangles, your kind of top left coordinate, bottom right coordinate. No, please draw a rectangle or a square or whatever it might be, either filled or empty. And all of these stack on top of each other. So you can first draw your line and then draw your box and then draw your circle, and you would see them all at the same time. And of course, if they were occupying the same dots, they would look like they're sort of overlapping, and you could build up pictures in that way. And it's very much a demo, and so you can actually see in the output the hexadecimal codes that make up that picture. So in that way, I suppose you could develop it further and say, like, okay, I'm going to save these codes, or I'm going to output this code into SVG or something later. I haven't really thought that far down the line. Then same with grid. I was hoping at one point to make a chessboard, but I haven't gotten that far yet. But one of my first tests was to draw grid lines that have, say, like 2 by 2 dots or 3 by 3 dots or 5 by 5, and however many lines fit on the page, that's how many that would be. Then you could draw lines on top of that to make different graphs. So that was sort of my way of getting into what can we do. One of my favorite things to make when I'm like 3D printing or even brailing is mazes. And so I did a maze generation in this app also. So you could generate a random maze and then solve it or follow it. One of the other ideas that I had presented to Dot was turtle graphics. And I don't know if anyone knows about turtle graphics anymore, but it's where you start out in the center of the screen and you have a small logo of a turtle, and you tell the turtle, go forward, and it draws a line. Or you say, turn left, turn right, or lift up the pen or put down the pen. And then you can draw in that way. And that was some people's first introduction to programming that could be repeated. So I made that where there's no logo of the turtle, but it does start in the middle of the screen. And if you go forward, it's going to start drawing dots. And if you turn right, it's going to go, say, southeast, because from one point on the display, you can go 8 different directions. So we could turn right, and that will be, say, 45 degrees. Go forward, turn right again. Now you're going south, and you go forward, keep drawing. Or lift up your pen and go forward a few times and put it back down. Now you have a break in that. And so that's another way that I made it so that you could draw. It is definitely a proof of concept. I started working on it before AI was very big. And we were using Aider and not Claude Code at the time. And it was me trying to drive it and trying to boss it around. And then I wanted to resurrect it from a really complicated way of running it into a Docker thing. And by then I had Cloud Code, and I could say, like, hey, make this thing Docker and make it work well. And oh, by the way, I want it to be in Korean so that people at Dot will understand what this is. And I hear the Korean is not exactly right, but it's also not terrible. So it illustrates in a way that with AI, you can not only translate things to be accessible in that we're making tactile graphics, but also communicating with teams that might not speak the same language as you. And so the UI that I have at the moment is available at DOT, rusty telephone, RUSTY, telephone, telephone.net. And if you like the UI and you want to, work on it from a starting point in your own project, feel free. I've never tested it on mobile, but it'd be interesting to see how others are solving for sort of the mobile edition. And I'd be curious to see if something like this would be useful in other people's projects. I do still want to learn how to mix graphics with Braille and how we would specify that and how we would make sure that the Braille is still visible and labeling things. When I'm talking about this, I'm thinking of, like, I want more space on my DotPad. I want a DotPad that covers my entire desk. I want it, enough to be like a old Nokia screen. Like, how many pixels was that? 300 by something. That would be an amazing thing, because I think my imagination sometimes is bigger than the display itself. But if there are any questions, is anyone reading out questions as we get them?
Yeah, so we'll take those at the end, David.
Sounds good.
But brilliant stuff. Thank you so much. Now, tell me, did I dream this, or did I hear somewhere that you'd done something around stocks?
Yes, so another project that I am working on is accesstrader.net, and that is live. And this is accessible stock trading where you can view charts and graphs, and not only the daily ones, but the minutes and the hours and the months. And you can already live this week do live trading on the app. My goal is to figure out how to present that kind of data on a DotPad. It is not there yet, but it is something that will be there. So being able to present the high lows and of what they call candlesticks, where you have the open, close, high, and low of either a minute or an hour or a day, is my goal to experiment with that on DotPad as well.
You know, it's funny you say that our imaginations are sometimes bigger than the display itself. You mentioned Nokia, which made me wonder if anyone had made Snake for DotPad. That would be pretty fun. We'll come back to you, David. I'm sure people are going to have questions for you as well. Last but by no means least, I want to introduce Gary Redfern-Gray, our technical support manager here at Dot. And Gary, as well as sharing a little bit about some of the projects that you have developed in Microsoft Windows, it would perhaps also be useful to maybe share some of the resources, the web page that we have available for aspiring developers as well. So let's turn it over to Gary.
Okay, great. Hi everyone. Yes, so I first came across DotPad, and I remember Ali sort of saying, "Oh, it's got an SDK," so that made me really interested because, of course, it meant that you could actually build things with it, and so I first got used to the SDK and started building a BRF BRF reader for Windows, because you know what it's like when you load a BRF a BRF file into Notepad, for example. And quite often you get that long line, short line problem. So what I wanted to do was to make a reader that would enable you to easily read those files, and something that I could quickly show a demonstration what the DotPad reading experience was like. So, and again, that taught me how to get Braille on the DotPad. And as JJ was saying, that is not an easy task, because you know you have to leave one dot between each cell. And so your second cell doesn't start in your second cell. Your second cell starts on the right-hand side of the second cell, because you've got to leave that dot. So it's quite a complicated procedure. This is before I got into the whole kind of vibe coding thing. So that was the first thing that I wrote. The second thing was a thing called Crates. It's like I'm not sure whether anyone's heard of the game Soccer Band, but it's basically a game where you're pushing objects around a maze, essentially, and you've got to try and get those objects to the right places in the maze to solve the level, and then you have several different levels. So that's very that was fun to do, and again to try and draw graphics on the DotPad, and to learn how to do that. Then I wrote a Sudoku game, and I think Sudoku is and I kind of got into doing that because I know that people were talking about it on the multi-line Braille forum, and I just think that something like the DotPad is a fantastic use case for Sudoku, because it's that whole kind of 9x9 grid of numbers that you need to be able to see all of at all the times. So if you've never played Sudoku, you have a 9x9 grid of numbers, and you have to make sure, for example, in each row and each column, you need to have all of the digits from 1 to 9. So when you get the puzzle, you have open spaces, so you have some numbers missing, and it's your job to fill those numbers in. Well, of course, if you can't quickly see what numbers you've got in each row, in each column, or in each 3x3 grid. It's really difficult to play. I'm not sure whether anyone else has tried to play that with speech, but that's really difficult if you don't have it all under your fingers. So that's when vibe coding came in for me, because what I basically did is I got AI to write essentially the game, and that gave me the front end as well. So I have the Sudoku on the screen, and I was able to play that with my daughter for the first time. I'd never played it, but we were able to sit down and say, no, shouldn't we put a 6 in there? No, Dad. That's her favorite phrase. No, Dad. She's really good at those. So that was definitely fun. And then another thing that I was started to write, and these are all kind of proof of concepts, and I'm sorry at the minute we don't have any of them up online. But this program called Imagine, because what I wanted to be able to do is to try and teach AI how to put tactile graphics on the DotPad in a way that we can interpret. So I would say, okay, I'd say to AI, make a picture of a guitar, and and I'd get that on the DotPad. And so for things that I could recognize, that I could tell quite easily, I could then sort of say, oh no, that's not very good. I need to do that again or whatever. But for things like a spider, for example, having never seen what a spider looks like, I don't know whether that's good or not, or not good. And so what I then did was I had Copilot and ChatGPT, or as a ChatGPT and Gemini facing off against each other. So I'd get ChatGPT to make a picture of a spider, and then I'd feed that into Copilot and say, does this look like a spider to you? Can you recognize from this information that I'm giving you, can you recognize what that is? And if it said no, then I would get it to do it again, or I would change the prompt and go around that. So the idea is so that to iterate on that, to improve the ability of this program to, you give it a prompt and it gives you a tactile graphic. And it's so I said, okay, let's have a DotPad. So can you give me the picture of the top of the DotPad on my DotPad? So, and it did quite a good job of that. So those are the kinds of things that I've been doing just as a proof of concept. The other thing that I'm interested in doing is trying to enable people who don't have any idea of how the SDKs work to be able to, but might know how to do a bit of vibe coding. How could make DotPad apps? So that's what I'm looking into now. So that from a prompt to an AI, you could then write an app that would know how to connect to the DotPad and put the braille or the graphics where you want it when you want it. So, but it's all kind of it's all the fact that we have an SDK. It just opens up these possibilities, and that's one of the reasons why I like the DotPad so much. Now, if you want to know where to get the software developer kits, you can go to developer.dotincorp.com, and that should tell you all you need to know. Hopefully, you should be able to find out how to use that from your preferred language and platform. So if you're wanting to do it with Windows or Android or Linux or iOS, I think is up there. You should have all that information. And again, you can obviously email us if you get stuck, and we'll help you.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Gary. And you also made a chess game as well.
Well, yes. Now that's another thing. So where we are on the cusp, guys. We are on the cusp of enabling these this wonderful SDK to be embedded into a screen reader. So if you think, so normally what you would do is that you would write these apps separately to your screen reader. But now what we're able to do is be able to completely drive the Braille display from your screen reader. So if you need 10 dot Braille, right? Sorry, if you need 10 line Braille, so that has enabled, I mean, we've not released it quite yet, but what that's enabled me to do is write a JAWS script for a program called Fritz. So I'm not sure if we've got any chess players on here, but Fritz is a very well-known chess program for Windows. And it means that now you can, part of the reason why I did that is because I used to own Fritz when I could see a little bit better, and then as my eyesight deteriorated, it became pretty much inaccessible to me. But now with the DotPad, I can sit down and I can actually play against it, and because I can use this library, it means that I can see the chess position in proper Braille chess code, and then that will lead, and any chess position on the board I can now view with the DotPad, or I can flip over and see what the move list as well. So it makes that program now accessible. So hopefully, so watch this space, because more is coming in this developer space.
Brilliant. Okay, and I know AT Guys also has a chess game as well, which you can play. That is publicly available. So, okay, I think we are at the point now where we can take some questions. So don't forget, it's a webinar. So if you put your question in the Q&A section, Louise Humphreys, Dot's marketing manager, will shout those out and we'll direct them to the members of the panel.
Okay. I'll start at the top. Derry has made some comments and asked a couple of questions, so I'll just try and group these together as much as possible. So, firstly, Derry has said, JJ, your calendar is awesome, really cool. The way Pan Forward goes forward 1 month and F4 goes forward 1 year. So, a bit of a shout out there for your work. He has also asked, are you planning any other games, JJ? So, he's actually said maybe a numbers game like Sudoku. So
Well, there
yes,
you are.
we've found out about that already today. But Derry, anything else on your radar? Oh, sorry, JJ, anything else on your radar from Derry?
Uh, Nothing specifically, but open to ideas. And yeah, that's what I love about this, because I'm learning from some of the things that Gary and David have done. And I think there's some areas that we can collaborate as well, because yeah, I mean, there's so many other cool ideas for games. So definitely send them over, and you can just contact us through that page.
Well, I would
Okay.
love Snake and Wordle.
Yeah, Snake seems like an easier one. It sounds like David already has half the code for that with his turtle graphics thing.
I think he
So
does, yeah.
yeah.
Okay, JJ, just while we have you, Derry has said he loves all the apps that the AT guys do. I'm beta testing iOS 27, and the graphic multi-line part is not working at the moment. Is anybody else finding this?
Yeah, I'll defer to you guys.
I
Yeah,
believe that
so
to
that's
be
probably
true.
a matter for Apple. So the three projects that or the three individuals that we've kind of highlighted in this webinar are independent developers. So these guys are doing stuff off their own bat. They're taking the Dot SDK and they are running with it and creating their own thing. So they're not building on existing. With the exception of Gary's comments about the JAWS script, for the most part, these are standalone apps that are not necessarily reliant on a screen reader. So, yeah, Gary, did you want to say anything about iOS 27? It's a little bit out of scope for this.
And I only wanted to say that it is a beta. I am aware that it doesn't work, but it's a beta. It's an early beta, so hopefully it should improve
Yeah, we'll keep
over time.
reporting back to Apple, I guess, through
Yeah.
the test flight or however you do that. Yeah.
Okay, great.
And you
Mario.
as well. Feel free to report that to Apple. If the more they hear from people, the better.
Absolutely, yeah, and we do test. We just do test internally as well. So and we feed back to Apple as well. But the more people that report this stuff, the better chance we have of getting it up Apple's priority list as well. So appreciate everybody's help with that.
Yeah. Okay, some of these questions came in right at the very start, so it might not be as easy to work out which particular
That's all right.
solution we were talking about at the time. But Mario early on said, can the Braille be resized or does it come standard? How does zooming work?
Okay, so I guess in theory the answer is yes to all of that, but Braille is a specific size, right? So Braille conforms to certain dimensions, and so if you enlarge the Braille, then it's not Braille anymore. David, did you want to comment about this? About perhaps some of the challenges with zooming and what might happen with Braille?
I think the challenge, of course, is that no matter what we do, the dots are still in a grid. And so circles end up more like octagons, depending on the sizes of them. And so if you zoomed in, you could theoretically put more dots in a smaller location, or zooming out like less dots in a location, but you can't actually, the dots aren't close enough together to say, now this dot is bigger. But you could take, say, what looks like a single dot and then now make it a bit bigger, say 9 by 9 square, or something by something hexagon/octagon-ish shape. So sometimes it is hard to tell, like, what is actually there. Is this a circle, or is this does it look exactly on screen like the shape that I am feeling at the moment?
Yeah, and I guess for Braille labels, we almost need like a layered approach where
Yeah,
the
exactly.
Braille doesn't change size, right, Jay? Oh, mute.
I'm not sure I have too much to add here. I guess if you wanted to do jumbo braille, you could put one space, one dot space between each dot. Um, I'm not sure how readable that would be for anyone, but there's no reason why that couldn't be done.
Hmm. Yeah,
Yeah, it's all got to
and
be.
we kind of do that like on the DotPad X when you switch it on initially, you get the dot logo, and you get the word dot. It only appears for a couple of seconds, so you have to be pretty quick. Um, but you get the word dot in
Mm.
print, like raised print,
Yep.
and then you get a 6 dot braille cell with dots 1, 3, and 5 slightly enlarged, and that's the dot logo. And I learned a thing when I went to Seoul, that while that represents O in English braille, that's actually the full stop in Korean braille. Dots 1, 3, 5. Who knew? Every day's a school day. So, and that's kind of jumbo braille, I guess, because it's like an enlarged braille cell. So yeah, lots of stuff to unpack there. And I think one of the things I would like as an outcome from this session, I think we would all like, is to try and put developers in contact with one another, to kind of share ideas and solutions and perhaps avoid duplicating efforts. So yeah, we'll certainly look at ways in which we can do that to tackle some of these challenges.
Okay, great. Mario asked a second question. He said, how does haptic touches generally work? Is this screen display made up of pins only or haptic features?
All right, Gary, I might ask
I
you this.
don't
So,
believe there's any, even though there's no haptic features in the SDK at the minute, so it's not something that we can actually do.
but maybe in future. So we know, obviously, from switching on and checking battery
Yes, it
life and
does.
things like that, that DotPad has the ability to vibrate.
Yep.
That capability is not currently in the SDK, but maybe that's a request. We could put that in for a future.
Yep.
Okay, great. Alexander has said, from what I understand, there is proprietary AI that translates images into the raised pin output. How long does that take? Is there a cost for it for the user? How scalable is this, and do they save?
Okay. So I know there are a number of people working on a number of solutions, and that's the reason for having this session. Really, is for everybody to kind of, bring and sort of show and tell. No one's really spoken at any great length about um, building a proprietary AI to produce graphics. Apart from Gary, you did talk a little bit about sort of iterating to try and improve the ability of AI to produce tactile graphics.
Yeah.
How far did
So
you get?
um, it's an investigation. So there
Right,
are,
so that's not ready for scaling at this moment.
so it's not ready for release. But what I would say
Mm.
is that we have products which have AI in them, uh, which we're using to help produce content. But when it comes to development, it's really quite low level. So what the SDK gives you is the ability to put Braille on the DotPad. If you want to do anything with AI, then you'll need to kind of do that yourself or get AI to help you use AI. So yes, so we don't have anything that we can that we're not going to be, for example, releasing an AI SDK kind of module because it's so application dependent.
But perhaps there's a commercial question there. So I would request popping that on an email, and we can pick that
Can
up.
I add something quickly?
Yeah, please.
So I know there has been people, and on the multi-line list especially, who have been as far as getting AI to draw images using some of the apps, say on the iPhone, and asking ChatGPT to draw a simple image, and then when you focus that image, it will pop up on the display. So
Mhm.
we know that's available. What I have done also is asked ChatGPT to create me some SVG files. So these are vector graphics image files, and I gave it some parameters. I said I need this to be 60 wide by 40 down, and I only want white and black, and I want single dots or lines, etc., etc. So it gave me images that I was then able to bring into the free .canvas app, which can render SVG files. So that is possible as well. I know we're working on ways to simplify that process, but there definitely are ways to get there. And I think as we all work together, we'll be able to simplify all of that. There shouldn't be any cost other than your AI usage to create these types of things.
Right, but if you are representing, an organization and you're looking to do this at scale, then I would request that you perhaps pop that question in an email, and
Oh yeah,
we
absolutely.
can
Yeah, there's a
help
lot
you
of different ways
explore
to go
that with
about it.
you. Yeah,
Absolutely.
for sure.
Okay. We've got quite a few questions and only 7 minutes. So, just to let everybody know. So, Alexander has asked, how quick is the refresh rate for games? Maybe not the right term, but how quickly can pins toggle on and off?
I don't have an exact. Does anyone have an exact number?
Under a half second or so, I'd say.
Maybe even less
For the whole
than that.
display. So that's quite
Yeah.
yeah, it's quite good.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, if I you can kind of hear it if I switch on my dot pad. One second. That was the whole display refreshing. I don't know if you were able to hear that, but it's
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's pretty quick.
Perfect. Um, okay, so Chris has asked, has anyone gotten SVG files rendering on the DotPad? I've been doing all my modeling with Python and CAD query, and the ability to view SVGs in real time would make me a very happy bunny.
Well, I think if it's not there already, I think that is coming to dot canvas.
Yeah. Canvas can do SVGs now.
Yeah, so there we go.
Okay, thank you, Chris. Um, Bill has said, actually, it's Pat. So, hi, this is Pat from Dancing Dots using Bill's login. We are interested in displaying Braille music and visual music symbols on the DATPad at the same time. I'm a developer as well. Any comment on music-related apps so far?
I would say if you're coming to NFB, come and talk to us because we might be able to help you with that. We don't have a solution ready to go, but we share your desire.
Okay, great. Um, Elijah has said, is the BLE protocol documented. If you want to write your own implementation of it, it would be cool to write a dot emulator for the Monarch so that all dot SDK apps could be used with it, as well as iOS VoiceOver.
Gentlemen, anyone thoughts on this one?
That's different because the Monarch, I believe, runs on a different platform, so you couldn't take a dot app and run it on the DotPad directly. But of course, if it's a web app, no, you still would need a DotPad. You still would need a DotPad even if it's a web app. So
we'll give that to the developers to think about. Maybe it's a bit of a challenge.
But yes, the protocol, the BLE is in the SDK. That part is we have, but
it is.
Yeah.
Perfect. Okay. Venkatesh has said, is it possible to use vibration now or in the future via the SDK?
No, I think we already did that one. So that will hopefully we'll ask if we can get that added. So it's not currently in the SDK.
Right. We have a comment from Mustafa saying you can use high chart stocks. It's pretty accessible. Disclaimer, I work for high charts.
That's cool. That's awesome.
Letting you know.
There you go, David.
Yeah, we're working on putting in getting high charts to work, and definitely looking for more ways of using that with the DotPad would be great if you have information on that.
Great. This one might just need some clarification. So Bob has said, what type of pen do you need to draw on the DotPad?
You don't need a pen. So you do the drawing from your smart device. So DotPad is a display only, and then you send any content from your smartphone, laptop, or tablet on which you could draw in DotCanvas, or you could do as the guys on the panel have done and code whatever you like to have displayed.
Or you can use the keys depending on how the app is set up. So the turtle graphics that I was talking about earlier, I do have keys for forward, backwards, turn left, and turn right. And those are on the DotPad itself. The DotPad has 6 keys across that you can hook into to do various things like that.
Yeah.
Okay. Last couple of questions then. So Mario has said, are all Braille codes acceptable? I make use of UEC generally. What is the best code to use with the graphics?
Yeah. So DotPad is code agnostic. Like, we don't mind what Braille code you put on there. You can use old standard English Braille from 1930, whatever, if you like. We're absolutely Braille music. The Nemeth. We know people are using DotPad in Korean, and so any Braille code is perfectly fine. But if you're using a particular tool, then your choice of Braille codes may be determined by that tool. So if you're using a screen reader or an app, then it will be that software that decides which Braille codes are available to you, unless you want to roll your own.
Okay, brilliant. And just the last one here is from Jessica. I think Annette might have answered it already in writing, but Jessica is asking, she lives in the United States. How can she find out more about getting a DotPad, and who can she speak to? I don't know if Annette maybe wants to answer that one live.
Yes, of course. You're welcome to reach out directly to me. My email is, I put it in the chat. It's ANAT.Nullman, and as a Nancy, ULMAN @dotincorp.com. Or you can email us at inquiry@dotincorp.com, and that will get to me as well. And we can connect you with our local distributor. JJ is here as well. You're welcome to contact JJ for any more technical questions. But we're happy to address any of your questions. And if you're interested in buying DotPad, connect you with somebody who can sell it, including JJ.
Great. Thank you so much. We are almost out of time, so I'm just going to quickly shoot round and get everyone to wrap up with a final thought and any contact details. Jay. JJ.
He's on mute at the
I think
moment.
you're on mute. We did so well. We managed to get nearly the whole hour without saying you're on mute.
There we go. Sorry. Yes, just very excited for all the future developments, and maybe Dave will say how we can maybe start collecting names from people who want to join a group of some sort. Because I'd love to get a developer group going of some sort.
Great. And if people want to find out about AT Guys, Jay, and all the work you're doing,
atguys.com.
perfect. David, how about you? Final thought and ways to get in touch.
Yeah, I'm really interested to get these ideas together into some libraries so that other people who want to get involved in developing with DotPad don't have to, work out how to translate between, say, Unicode Braille and, what DotPad expects and that sort of thing. So looking forward to hearing more and learning more. If you want to get in touch, you can find me on LinkedIn. Otherwise, I do need to update my own site, don't I? Thank you so much, and look forward to getting more involved in this community.
Thank you very much. And finally, Gary.
Okay, my name's Gary Gray, obviously. Gary at dotincorp.com is my email. So if you have any questions about the SDK or how to get going with developing for DotPad, shoot me an email and I'll help you out.
Thank you so much, guys. And thank you, Louise, for all your help with managing the questions. Anything final from you, Louise?
Just to say thank you everyone again for attending. There's been lots of links and resources shared today. So when we send out the catch-up video on email, we'll make sure we try to consolidate as many of those links and reference points as possible, so you've got them all in one place as a record. So you can expect that in your inbox on Wednesday this week.
I feel a LinkedIn post coming on, perhaps.
Yeah, that too.
With some of these resources. This has been really interesting, guys. Thank you so much. It's you that make this stuff happen. And if you're interested, do drop an email, info@dotincorp.com. But that's it from us for now. Stay tuned to our podcast, Raising the Dots. Hopefully we'll see you at NFB or ACB or AHEAD or at Site Village. And from all of us here on the Dot team, until next time, it's Dave Williams saying bye for now.